Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Discerning Gamer. As you can hear, I'm still struggling with a sore throat, but want to bring you some Dawn of War 3 open beta footage. I've been obviously learning a lot about the game, and will be releasing a video with my sort of overall thoughts and impressions and kind of like a mini review prior to release. But with this video, I started to play some Space Marines because I actually think they're my weakest faction to play with, and I wanted to see what I could learn and improve myself here. And I played a very close game, 1 versus 1 with an Eldar, where it was kind of on a knife edge up to a point, and I eventually end up losing. But there's some good micro here, some good lessons to be learned, so wanted to cast this for you guys. So I've started off with the opener of a double tack squad. Servitor goes to cap the safe resource point and then goes to construct a chapel barracks, I believe. I always start off investing in requisition generators as soon as I can, because you get so much power to start off with that it's kind of a no-brainer. You know, you're only going to need 15 or so power to build a assault marine squad at the beginning of the game, so it's worth just increasing your requisition income. So here I capture my resource point on the side, move my two tack squads over to find out what the Eldar's doing, and obviously these Banshees are here. I guess he's rushed those out, so only probably got one Dire Avenger and gone for the really fast Banshees. And what I'm trying to do here is kite, so I've split up my tack squads. I let one shoot at the Banshees while the other ran away, and that kind of forces them to split their attention. And again here, the other squad that ran away is now in a position to fire at those. And what I did first was actually go for some scouts, because scouts are not so expensive, but they give you a really kind of like subtle advantage, particularly over the Eldar, because they are the only Space Marine unit that is permanently stealthed as long as it's not attacking or capturing. So you can, if you put them on hold fire, which you can do by pressing D, you can sit them next to the opponent and just have vision on them, and basically use that to get the best positioning or understand how they're going to attack you. Another really important thing is their Q ability, which is blind grenades that give a really punishing stun to squads, and that's really useful for dealing with early game Banshees or Assault Marines or that kind of thing. I missed my first blind grenade, which kind of sucks, but again here the Banshees, their shield's down, so they're taking quite a lot of power, quite a lot of damage, sorry, and I'm doing the same kind of, splitting my squads and kiting them. I think the problem here is, you'll look, I've lost, half of my scouts. I've lost half of my 2 tank squads, and really he's only lost sort of, say, 80% of his Banshee squad there. So to get it back up to full strength, I'm going to be spending an awful lot more requisition than he is, which means he can spend that on listening posts, he can spend it on power generators, he can spend it on more squads, whatever. I'm going to be behind. And I think that that was kind of the story of this game for me, was that it was death by 1,000 cuts, which I suppose is, him playing right into the strengths of the Eldar. And I think going on to play some games after this, I realised what really probably would have helped me is investing in some scout snipers, so that every engagement I have, I can be constantly whittling away at those Eldar units and actually inflicting some losses on him. I deployed my Assault Space Marines into a drop pod, and I dropped them on the Dark Reapers there. Pretty solid choice. I could have done with having my tanks in position straight away. And I'll tell you what I didn't do here. I should have dropped the bloody chapter standard, because it makes a huge difference. It's kind of equivalent to the Orcs War. My kind of feeling with this particular attack I was making here as well is that I could see this is where the Eldar had put his webway gate, and without a webway gate, the Eldar really suffer from a huge disadvantage. So I was trying to kill it, but really, even with the 2 squads of tanks and the Assault Marines wailing on it, I wasn't going to kill it in any decent amount of time, particularly if I was under fire from Dire Avengers and Dark Reapers. So I've just kind of tried to push them off here, but I'm going to have to retreat. And again, it's a similar story here where the Banshees have come back in. My Assault Marine squad is only has one model left. That's going to be really expensive to reinforce, and he's lost basically only shield, I think, and I should have pulled these Marines out of here much quicker. And you can see that the Banshees have done something to stun the majority of my tac squads there. And I think this is actually a bug, because one of the tac squads was just completely immobilised for ages underneath that shield. Like the Banshee Scream just does not last that long, and I lost the whole squad. And that's, Space Marines losing squads in the early game is really expensive and difficult to recover from. Anyway, with the kind of benefit that I got from, pushing into the Eldar's territory and forcing the issue with him, I was able to get a listening post up on the centre resource objective, which is makes a huge difference. It kind of gives me a lot more security to invest in resources there, and also gives me a bit of a fulcrum to fight around, because the listening posts do a fair bit of damage, and I've even got a doctrine to increase the amount of damage that they do. So it wasn't a total rout having lost that tac squad and having lost so many units there, but it wasn't great. So here I tried to stagger my Assault Marine drum, so the idea was that one would land and stun them, and then the other one would land slightly afterwards and stun them again. I was a bit too hasty with the second jump, and it didn't have the desired effect, but I did push them off, and there's only, on the 1v1 map, there's only one elite point resource generator, and because of how powerful elites are in this game, if you can't control that, you really have to make sure your opponent isn't controlling it either, because if not, you're gonna, end up with basically having to fight an early elite with only line units, which, unless your micro is sort of Gosu, you're not going to come out of in a favourable position. Again here, because I forced him off the mid, I thought, I'll try and push a bit of my advantage and, keep pressuring him. I don't want him to direct the pace of combat and be constantly reacting to him. But again, just with the units I've got at the moment, I'm not really, I'm losing a lot of very expensive to replace models, and I'm not really, doing any significant damage to him. In fact, I think I lose a scout squad here. So I finally built some snipers, which will help with this. I think, although you don't want to, be reactive, and you don't want to let the enemy seize control of the day here, I think in hindsight one of the things I was doing is probably being a little bit too aggressive. So it's good to go and harass them, but I probably committed too hard, and I suppose that's one of the kind of flaws with Assault Marines, is because they're melee units, you can't just harass with them in the same way that you could with like a Devastator or attack squads. You've got to go balls deep and get into sword range, and if you don't kill something there, then you can be harassed by Dire Avengers and Dark Reapers the whole time that you retreat. So I've taken Gabriel here. I have experimented with Jonah, the Librarian elite, for my early game elite, and I just don't see him to be anywhere near as effective as Gabriel, who is sort of quite comfortable tanking a huge amount and doing huge damage there. You can see wiped out half of Banshee squad with that one attack there. The Eldars responded by bringing in Jane Zar, who is really powerful. Her two abilities together, if they land with good hits on your infantry, you're just going to lose squads every time. And I think really that does need to be addressed. And again here, I'm controlling the map and I'm being aggressive to the Eldar, but they're just taking it with no problem. I've lost a assault squad there, and I am doing some decent sort of requisition damage to him by killing models here. I think I probably killed a Dire Avenger squad, but yeah, I killed a Dire Avenger squad back there, but it probably was not worth the loss of an assault squad, so I should have just been a little bit more chill and consolidated that. And I've just noticed here as well, I'm floating a huge amount of requisition. So with all this kind of like breathing room I bought myself by being aggressive, I should have been just flicking back to build my doctrine barracks, and perhaps increasing my tech level and doing some infantry upgrades, because that would have been one way of kind of mitigating the losses that I've taken in being aggressive against the Eldar here, and it's not something I've really done. So, sort of saying this, I definitely, should have been less committal in these attacks, but I think I chose a bad loadout initially by, focusing so heavily on assault marines. I think if I'd have chosen some devastators, chosen some scout snipers, I would have allowed me to skirmish with him much more effectively. So it was probably a function of, not really thinking it through in the heat of the actual game, but also, the units that I had picked kind of encouraged me to play in a way that wasn't really working in my favour here. So there, I should not have run my assault marines that far forward, and you can see just the one ability from Jane's Arm basically decimated that squad. I should have just been a little bit more conservative and let my scout snipers get into position, but you can see now I've got them and my attack marines firing, and Gabriel's doing some work in the backlands, and this is actually a really positive engagement, because the thing is with Eldar, once their shields go down, they're really fragile. They do start to drop models, and they are pretty expensive to replace. Not as expensive as Space Marines, but enough that they're going to feel the burn there. That worked pretty well, but you can see there, unfortunately, this is where his early advantage is manifesting itself. In the latter half of that engagement, he was able to bring in like an extra 2 squads of Dark Reapers, which is pure requisition, and I think it sniped a scout sniper squad. It's just killed an assault marine squad there. So all that requisition that he wasn't spending on reinforcing his squads has manifested itself in an extra 2 Dark Reapers, which are just absolutely punishing me now. When he hadn't brought them to bear initially, we were fighting pound for pound. That was a favourable engagement because my unit composition was right, and I handed his ass to him. But the sins of my early game came back to bite me in those Dark Reapers rocking up and just wiping out some retreating squads, which is really painful. I also suspect that not only did he have those extra Dark Reapers, but I think he also spent a lot of extra money on his economy, because the map is pretty fairly split here, and I have upgraded all my resources, but I haven't done the upgrades that increase extraction rate, whereas I think he did, because later on in the game he just is able to bring out a lot more stuff than me, which is a pain in the ass. I'm trying to use my Doctrine Chapel here to get out some Devastators for the mid game with Space Marines. I find them really effective because of their long range. They're still reasonably hardy, and also particularly against Banshees and stuff, they're the bolter Devastators slow down any units they fire at me, and you can either stop Banshees from charging into you or stop Dire Avengers from running away. Also, last cannons are a really cheap way to deal some pretty potent anti-vehicle damage, but also to be able to snipe at buildings from long distance as well. So that was kind of what I was going for here, but I actually suspect that having some more tactical squads here and upgrading them with plasma guns would have been a really sensible idea, because the plasma tactical squads are just devastating. I'd say even to the point where they're overpowered. I've played team games and stuff where one player would just go pretty much exclusively tacticals and absolutely annihilate people by just upgrading them all with plasma guns, and they would melt nearly anything that came towards them, apart from like the most heaviest of infantry or vehicles, which kind of makes sense in terms of the lore, but doesn't work very well in the context of the game. So what I tried to do here was rush out a Dreadnought fairly quickly to hopefully catch him on the hop, where he's kind of invested in a load of infantry and Dark Reapers and stuff, and no hard counters to vehicles. So I'm trying to make use of the fact that I haven't seen any vehicles from him yet, and I've got the very potent Dreadnought out. So first thing I'm going to do is take out his webway gate up here to kind of give myself a big advantage in the upcoming fight, and then I aim to go over and take out another webway gate up there, and also his resource extraction, and then my sort of thought was if I could do that and preserve my force and kind of stop him from attacking me because I've got this dreadnought that he can't respond to, then I'll be able to kind of pull the game back a bit. But we see how this goes for me, and you know, the dreadnought was out in pretty good time, I think, but I just didn't have the meat of infantry to back it up, as you'll soon see. So you know, I make some good headway here in destroying his resource points and you know, his webway gates, and it's really important to destroy Eldar webway gates, because just slowing down their units, particularly when they get Wraith units later in the game, makes a huge difference to how effective they are. You know, Eldar just don't do well if you pin them into a big slugging match, particularly with Space Marines. So you can see they're all moving really slow there, and this makes a huge difference. But ominously, you can see my dreadnought just was fired at there with a load of anti-vehicle Wraith projectiles, and also the Die Avengers, which do true damage, and it just, I mean, the dreadnought's too slow to get out of all that setup fire. I didn't notice the Wraith projectiles in time, and I just committed him to a really stupid engagement there where he was running around after some cheap ass Banshees, and he just got fragged by that huge blob of Dark Reapers and Wraith Guard, and that's really, I think this was at the point at which the game really became kind of unrecoverable for me, because you know, he just had a counter to everything that I had. His elite was alive, my elite was dead. I had done some damage to his economy, but clearly, you know, it had allowed him to do what he needed to do in terms of, you know, getting out some high tier units that would be able to take out my shield generator, take out my buildings, and push the objective in the long term. And unlike the last game I casted, this is not really a timid Eldar. You know, he is quite happy to smell blood in the water and take advantage of that. Well, in this instance at least, I've just fast forwarded through the rest of the game and had a look to remind myself what happens, and he does severely bloody my nose here, but he really could have, you know, gone for the jugular and ended it pretty much at this point, but he drags it out, and I think, you know, I managed to get my assault terminators out and managed to get a whirlwind and kind of hurt his units a little bit. He just plays it very safe, and I don't want to subject you guys to, you know, some sort of boring campy gameplay from me because I'm unable to attack, and indecision from him. So I'm gonna cut to some different games that I played now, just to look at the opening phases, because again, unfortunately, they're ones that I lost, but I think there's some learning experiences from them, and I just want to kind of analyse what I could have done differently. So this is a 2v2 game I played with an old pal of mine who was playing Eldar. We played a couple of games in sequence and didn't have much luck, probably in some degree down to my suboptimal Space Marine play, in the face of, you know, some fairly decent, usually Eldar opponents. But you know, there were some strokes of decent play in there, I reckon, and I want to, you know, look and see what I did well and try and figure out and perhaps give you guys some tips on avoiding the same fate as me. So I'm just going to fast forward through the opening segment here, so enjoy some hilariously high-pitched squeaky Space Marines. The opening I went for was I went for triple tactical Marines into a forward chapter barracks, with the idea of getting some scouts out to support the TAC Marines. And I actually built my third squad of TAC Marines in a drop pod, which I dropped in there, and actually that was a bit of a waste, really. I mean, it was good because I was able to, you know, get forward and take out his resource generator before it could be built, which was good, but it would have been better if it actually ended up being dropped on a squad and disrupting it. So here I was doing some pretty good damage there. I probably should have committed because I just took down his shield but then didn't actually kill any models, which was stupid. He cleverly uses his builder unit to tie up some of my Space Marines in melee combat, and here I'm kind of, you know, I've got 5 superiority because I've got 3 squads and he's only got 2. I managed to dodge all his plasma grenades and actually take some of his models there, which is nice, and I also killed his worker. So actually, for an initial engagement, this is really nice because I've killed some of his buildings, I've killed some of his units, I've killed one of his workers, I've slowed him right down, and I've also had the opportunity to take a capture point off him, so he's going to have to wait for that to recapture before he can build any resource points on it, which is just great. And my teammate comes on over to just sort of help press the issue even more, which is great. And I go back slightly to link up with my scouts and use those guys as well. Again, because they're great, because they give you vision, and you can also stun grenade enemy units that you come across. And with the combined firepower that we've got here, you can see that this webway gate, even though it's taken an enormous amount, will actually drop. I've just built a scout sniper, and I'm going to bring that in so that no matter what kiting the Eldar does and how we fight, those scout snipers are going to be there constantly just picking off units and doing damage to him. And that's just invaluable. I think when you're fighting Eldar, it's really, really worthwhile having a couple of those with you at all times, because it stops them being able to do that nice hit and run that they like to do, and just punishes them for it. So here I'm just forcing the issue. He's got some banshees. I was able to use my scouts to chuck a blind grenade there, and look how that's just beautifully stunned those banshees, allowing me to completely disentangle my attack marines. And all the while the scout snipers were shooting those and have essentially forced them to retreat. And because of those scout snipers, we can just chill up here, blow his webway gate away without him being able to return fire, and we've actually seized control of the map here. Thinking back on it, I said that I lost this game, but I actually didn't. This was an extremely promising start, and I think shows this kind of anti-Eldar strategy working really well, and it does pay dividends. That's one of the things with this game, actually, is I find that if you take really significant losses in the early game and you can't hold on or at least deny the middle resource point to your opponent, then your opponent has to fuck up pretty spectacularly for you to then go on and lose the game. So that is one thing. I don't know how I feel about that from a design perspective, but it's definitely true in my experience that if you're not on point early game and you either let your opponent have easy access to more resources, you're going to lose in the long run, or if you lose all the stuff, you're probably screwed. You'll see there, just chucked another blind grenade at those charging banshees. I was able to do it at leisure because the scouts were stealthed, and all of my scout snipers and attack marines could just fire at that at leisure, and it was rendered completely ineffective. So macro wise, I'm now transferring to the Doctrine Chapel, because it's cheap, it's another building up front that I can reinforce and heal elites at, but also I do like having those devastators. It plays nicely into this kind of style that I'm doing, where I'm using the scouts to give me vision, and I'm just trying to keep the Eldar at arm's length and almost do a kind of slow inevitable creep where I'm pushing forward into him in force, and if he engages me, then I take the fight on my own terms, stun his units, snipe them, use the superior fire and health of the attack marines to drag him into a prolonged fight and beat him. And the devastators play really nicely into that, because obviously they can sort of sit further forward than the scout snipers, but they slow any units that they're firing at, so those banshees are going to be less effective. They also do great damage. They're actually pretty good against buildings, and also as soon as I tech up my headquarters, I'll be able to get access to last cannon devastators, which have great range and are a relatively cheap way to take out objectives, take out buildings, take out all the other stuff that I'm going to need to really put this Eldar back. So I'm just going to fast through some sort of boring micro here. I get Gabriel Angelos out, I build a couple of heavy bolter devastators, I check up on my teammate who's using a similar tactic but with Eldar snipers, and what I do here is I can see him investing quite heavily in the defense of this particular the shield generator, up there, so rather than engaging that directly, I spot another webway gate down there, and also I can get round the side to his resource point. So I set up my scout snipers, I set up my scouts ahead to give vision, I've got my heavy bolter devastators coming, I've got Gabriel Angelos sitting in the back, and I start taking out the webway gate, and that obviously forces him to either, you know, run the long way around and address my force here, or it forces him to try and push forward and make me fall back. But the beautiful thing is, because I've got all these nice long range units, my scout snipers are firing at his counterattack, doing some great damage, heavy bolters opening up, slowing down all that stuff, and I'm just easily able to rotate around with Gabriel Angelos and the rest of my TAC Marines and lay into them in a really nasty way. And I think he lost a squad of Banshees there, and you can see that those Dire Avengers are just being, sorry, the Dark Reapers are being sniped as he retreats, and he didn't even actually take any of my resource points. He killed the listening post, but that wasn't really that consequential, and because he took that kind of unfavourable engagement and played into my hands there, I was able to you know, then go on and push into the shield generator after its defenders had been lured out of position and killed. You'll see I got some plasma guns on my Space Marines, which was great, and I also got a flamer. I've got the perk on that makes the flamethrower massively slow the target that it's hit, and that worked really well there, just allowing me to deal some serious damage to a group of retreating Banshees. But in other situations I can imagine that being really useful. You know, if you've got some orcs charging at you, some Banshees, whatever, if you can micro properly and get that flamethrower burst out in front of them, you're going to slow them down for that all important moment that's going to let you get in a load of range damage, you know, let your heavy bolters focus on them, let you get a blind grenade off with a scout to stun them or something like that. So that's something I need to use more. I think I need to get an earlier arsenal, because you need to get the Space Marine tech upgrade structure, the arsenal, in order to upgrade all your tactical Marines. And as I've said before, the plasma guns are really devastating, and the flamer also seems like it would have a lot of utility as well. So I'm just going to swap to look at one final game here, and this was one where I do actually lose. So if you're lusting for my blood, then be happy for that. This game that we're watching now was just kind of a roll from this point onwards. You know, I've taken out his objective, given myself a huge resource boost. I've taken out all of his resource points. I've killed loads of his units. At this point, he needs to concede. Well, I say he needs to concede. There's no concede button in the game, which is bloody stupid, you know, considering how simple it is to implement. But you know, there's no way he can come back from this unless I somehow dirt my entire army into his turret and get it all killed, and then don't proceed to build anything for the next 5 minutes. Then he could come back, but obviously that doesn't happen. I go on to win. So I'll switch into one more game, which I felt was kind of instructional. So at this point, I just kind of skipped the point where, you know, I'm at the middle. I've got my chapter barracks up. I've got one squad of Marines, tacticals, one squad of scouts, and some scout snipers. And unfortunately, my initial engagement's not gone well. I lost one of my tac squads, and I'm trying to kind of recover using those same tactics with the scout snipers and the scouts. But unfortunately, you'll see here, I just totally whiff the grenade, or that happens at some point. The Banshees charge me and I whiff the grenade. But the scout snipers are doing a pretty good job. I've brought out some more tactical Marines, so I'm hoping to kind of do that creeping death approach to them. But I think the opening bit of this game really demonstrates that if you take too many losses early on and the person you're playing against is competent, you know, they you know, it's their game to lose kind of thing. There's not too much you can do to come back. And here's this grenade whiff. Just painful, completely missed, reveal the scouts, and those Banshees just get in and are able to instantly kill my scout snipers, and they're really expensive. And it's just at this point where, you know, he's got all the resources, he's killed all the stuff that I actually need to execute a comeback on him, and he's even got some rangers to snipe for his own. So what are you to do in this point, kind of thing? I think if I were to look back to myself, unfortunately I didn't start recording in this game earlier to see where I whiffed the initial engagement, but it was probably just being a little bit too aggressive. If he's rushed everything straight away to get to that central point, and then he's also invested in a listening post on it, you're going to have a resource advantage because you've captured more points than him, and you've probably invested more points in income. So what you need to do is just use the right timing to kind of benefit from that additional resource income and hit him while he's trying to recover from that initial investment. It's obviously going to be quite a tender timing, but you can't, by throwing all of my units straight into his kind of, prepared position of the listening post with the all of his units right next to it, I've just played into his game plan and ignored that I've actually spent a lot of my time getting into a position where I've captured more resources and upgraded them before him. So you're playing into his game plan rather than taking advantage of what you've actually done. Again, I think this little clip here shows the efficacy of scout snipers, because for that whole engagement the Eldar was kiting back and attacking from multiple directions. The scout snipers were very good at just sitting there and inflicting some damage on him and making sure that he took model losses in the same way that I did. But I think from this part it was pretty much a lost cause, because I'd lost so much, and he was able to capitalize so much on that initial risky gambit that he took. So that's one thing, and there is a lot of depth to this game, so you've got to think about what you've done at the beginning of the game, what he's done, and actually playing in such a way that you're going to be making the best out of the decisions that you've made, and not benefiting the decisions that he's made. So I'll just have a look at these little micro things. I think at this point I'm not sure how useful it is to look at, because he's got a resource advantage on me. He's going to have more units. I've lost more units. He's just got everything he needs to deal with me, really. He's got the Banshees, he's got Maka, he's got the Dire Avengers, he's even got Rangers. So pretty much everything I'm doing there is just he's able to respond to it. And also, you see there, that was just disgusting. I mean, it was my fault for having my scout snipers blobbed, but Maka threw her spear and used her nuke ability, and in literally one hit completely destroyed both of my scout sniper squads. And really, I do think that elite abilities like that do need to be nerfed a little bit. I don't mind them killing a load of models and having a big impact, but it just seems excessive that he can wipe out 600 rec and 60 odd powers worth of units just with a simple 2-button combo that is on like a 10-second cooldown or something from a unit that is essentially free because it's an early game elite. So yeah, obviously I might be a little bit butthurt as well from losing the game, but that's just my experience with the beta so far. So again, I won't subject you to watching me slowly spiral down the drain here, but I think these initial engagements were quite instructive, and it does show the validity of using scout snipers and scouts, and a more sort of creeping advance against Eldar. But unfortunately it also shows that you've got to not play too heavily into their hands, otherwise you kind of get yourself into an unwinnable position, unfortunately. So with that, guys, I will leave you. I hope that this has been a useful kind of instructional video. I felt like I learned quite a lot about playing Space Marines. They're still probably my weakest race, but I hope that it helped you, because Eldar are definitely a tough race to compete with in the beta at the moment. Overall I've enjoyed a lot of the games I've played. There's some things I would definitely change about it, but I'm not regretting my decision to pick the game up, and can see myself playing it beyond release and sort of quite eagerly following how it's going to be developed post-release and balanced and supported long term. What did you think of kind of the beta if you've played it. What were your experiences of playing Space Marines? Am I going about it all wrong? Do let me know, guys, because if you've got some better suggestions, I'll try and get a game in early tomorrow before the beta closes, and try out some new tactics and try and record some footage of that. Anyway, I've been the Discerning Gamer, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time. Oh, but before next time, do like and subscribe if you're so inclined. That always helps the channel grow, and I would like to grow the channel. See ya!